Hey everyone, my name is Nishan Gupta. I'm a student from IIM Shillong and welcome to the ultimate guide to cracking GDPI for CAT. First of all, congratulations to each and every one of you who scored a fabulous percentile for CAT and any other entrance exam. You're one step closer to your dream B school. This video out here will cover your entire GDPI preparation from scratch. I will try to cover each and every tip, each and every trick, each and every nugget of information that I have at my disposal. I'm going to open it all out for you guys. I will also be talking about my interview experiences when I was sitting for interviews about 6 to 7 months ago in my next video. So if you do not want to miss out on that, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. Also, this video is going to be a tad bit long because I'm going to cover as many aspects as possible. So if you want to skip to a particular aspect of the video, you have the timestamps down in the description below. So let's begin with this video. Prerequisites. Prerequisites that you need before you begin your GDPI preparation is a notes app. Your notes app is a master sheet. It is going to contain each and every question with its corresponding answer. This is the master sheet that you will refer to before each and every interview. Every single thing that you're going to do throughout your preparation journey for GDPI is going to be jotted down in this master sheet. So me personally, I use the Notion app. Okay, because it has got toggle lists, which is basically you can have a question and you can have an answer hidden behind that toggle list. So I had a list of questions, as you can see over here on the screen, and the corresponding answers, and that is how I prepared for my GDPI. Questions can be endless. If you can think of a particular question that can be asked in your GDPI, in your particular interview, then you can jot it down and prepare an answer for that particular question. So before you start your GDPI preparation, make sure that you have finalized on a notes app that you're completely comfortable with. Your introduction. Most interviews start with, tell me a bit about yourself. This bit of the interview is completely in your control. You can make it crisp. You can decide exactly what you want to say and what you want to reveal to steer the entire interview in your favor. Do you want the whole interview to be about your small business that you started back in college? Do you want to mention about the NGO that you worked for? Do you want to talk about your interest in finance as a subject? Now is the time that you introduce that particular topic in your introduction. Your introduction is a place where you can drop a few breadcrumbs for the interviewer to pick up on. And if they do, then your entire interview will be around those few particular topics. So breadcrumbs can be something that is really interesting, something that defines you and separates you from the rest of the people. It can be an achievement, it can be some quizzes that you've won, sports, whatever that defines you and sets you apart is a breadcrumb. It's a spike in your resume. And if you have something that's extremely interesting, something that you want the interviewer to know, something that you want the entire interview to be around, then make sure that you introduce it in your introduction. Apart from this, your introduction should consist of your name, your age, where you're from, your undergraduate degree, your work experience if any, and why exactly do you want to do an MBA. So try to make it crisp, try to make it succinct, and try to leave breadcrumbs in and around these aspects. So here's the introduction that I use when I was preparing for my interviews. Watch carefully how I drop a few breadcrumbs about my interest in marketing and about the small business. Hi, my name is Nishan Gupta. I am 24 years old. I'm from Goa and I've done my BTech in print and media technology from MIT Manipal. I have a total formal work experience of 12 months and this has been across various fields from sales and marketing to operations. Amongst these three, my interest primarily lies in marketing. Well, in fact, my interest in marketing and businesses as a whole began when I studied advertising back in college and when I started a small business back in college. These two experiences really further intensified my interest in marketing and made me want to pursue my MBA in marketing. And after 2 years of MBA, I see myself working in an FMCG industry. So that's a bit about myself. Thanks a lot. So that was my introduction. I did that in one single take. I've said it so many times that it's crisp and it's like ingrained in my head by now. But here's a few things that you need to note. I dropped multiple breadcrumbs throughout the introduction. I spoke about advertising, which is a breadcrumb. I spoke about my undergraduate degree. I spoke about Goa also. I had to mention that because that's rather interesting. I spoke about my small business and not say much. I just mentioned it, and that's a breadcrumb that if the interviewer wants to pick up on, then they can ask me another question about my small business, and then I can elaborate. I can talk about how I started it, how I made profits, and that's something that is going to impress the interviewer. So I just dropped that little nugget over there. But the thing that you need to really focus on is how I mention marketing throughout my introduction. So marketing is something that I have a lot of interest in, that I have a lot of knowledge in, and that's my domain of choice. And I made sure that I introduce it in my introduction so that the entire interview henceforth is going to be around marketing. So that's exactly how you craft an introduction for yourself. Make sure that you follow each and every point and try to tailor an introduction that fits your particular profile. Lastly, remember that it's not always that the interviewer is going to pick up on your breadcrumbs. Many a times the interviewer has gone in a completely different direction than what I expected it to go. And that's absolutely all right. You did your part. You had 1.5 to 2 minutes that were completely in your control, and you tried your best to steer it in the direction that you wanted it to. So be prepared if it does not go in the direction that you wanted it to go. That's just natural, and that's how interviews are. They are unpredictable, but you're doing the best that you can with the few things that are in your control. Another alternative question that can be asked instead of "tell me about yourself" is "tell us something about you that is not in your resume." So be prepared for answering such questions. Number 2, your profile. Your profile consists of your 10th marks, your 12th marks, your graduation marks, the subject of your graduation, your work experience if you have any work experience, and your gap year if you have any gap year. These are just numbers on a page. But your job as an interviewee is to convert these numbers into stories. Now remember that a mark of a great interviewee is the fact that he or she can tell captivating and engaging stories. So what are these stories about, and how do you convert your entire profile and present it in form of multiple stories? I have a set of questions that you can use. Answer each and every one in form of a story or a real life example. And I will also tell you how you form multiple stories. So the list of questions are as follows. First question, what are your strengths? That is a simple question. I would suggest to have 3 strengths and have a story or an example that showcases how that is a particular strength of yours. Number 2, what are your weaknesses? Remember, do not show your strengths as your weaknesses.
Why don't I tell you what my greatest weaknesses are? I work too hard, I care too much, and sometimes I can be too invested in my job.
Okay. And your strengths?
Well, my weaknesses are actually strengths.
Instead, show genuine weaknesses and show how you've been taking steps to improve upon those weaknesses and to be better. So that is a much more genuine answer than to showcase your strengths as your weaknesses. Number 3, tell us about a failure and how you have improved since then. Number 4, what are your short-term and long-term goals? Now remember, whatever your short-term or long-term goals may be, they should align with why you're doing MBA, and they should align with what you're going to do post your MBA. Number 5, why is there a change from XYZ field to MBA? Now, that XYZ field can be anything that is not related to business. For example, engineering. So why is there a change from engineering to MBA? You should have a very clear reason for that, and you should have a story. So it's not just a fact-based answer, but something that is actually captivating and engaging. Number 6, why is there a dip in your scores, if any? So if you have a dip in your scores, say you had an 80 or a 90 percentile in your 10th, but then you drop to like 60 or 70 percentile in your 12th. One way to actually defend that is to show how you've taken steps to improve your scores academically or improve yourself otherwise. So it's very easy to say that, yeah, you did not work hard in your 10th or 12th or wherever you had that particular dip. But then you need to compensate that in other ways and show them that you are still somebody who is hardworking. You're still somebody who does not take things lightly, and you're somebody who's still trying their best to improve on a daily basis. So if you have, say, bad scores in 12th, you can say how you worked really hard and you were disappointed with the scores you had in 12th, and so you worked hard in your graduation, and that's how you scored a great CGPA in your degree, and you have made up for the bad performance in 12th, and you will continue to do so. So that's one way that you defend your bad scores, but make sure that it's genuine in nature. Make sure that you're actually working hard to, improve that one dip that you had a few years ago. It should sound genuine. It should sound truthful. And if it is true, then it's going to be seen in the way you speak. It's going to be seen in the expressions, and they're going to take your word for it. And they will believe that you truly are somebody who wants to improve on a daily basis. Number 7, why did you decide to take a gap year? Now, I will be putting out a video that covers the entire gap year topic in depth. So whether you should take a gap year or not, how does it affect your candidature, if it affects your candidature or not. So stay tuned for that. Work experience related questions. So your work experience can be divided into 3 major topics that you would have to think about. All of these are supposed to be in form of stories, and I'm going to tell you how to form stories. But the 3 major topics around your work experience are as follows. What was your role at your company? What was your contribution during your time at your company? And what was the impact that you created at the company? Another question that you can be asked is, walk us through a day in your life at work. These questions should give you a basic idea of what to expect. Now remember, take each and every one of these questions and add them to your master sheet. Think about an example in your life. Think about stories in your life that will better be able to answer a particular question, and jot them down, structure them, make them crisp, and practice them in front of a mirror by yourself. Keep reading them again and again. Your master sheet is a place where you jot down all such questions. This is not an exhaustive list at all. You're going to go through Telegram groups, you're going to go through other people's interview experiences, and you're going to come across various such questions, and you're going to be like, I don't know how I would tackle that question if that came onto me. And if you come across any such question, take a note of it, jot it down into your master sheet, think about what could be a possible answer, and answer them truthfully. So that is one way you increase the number of questions in your master sheet, so that your master sheet is as comprehensive as possible before your particular interview. So how do you form good structured stories that are compelling in nature? What you're going to do to form stories is use the STAR approach. STAR. They stand for situation, task, action, and result. No matter what story you have, you will always have a situation, a task, an action, and a result associated to that story. Whether it be 10th, 12th, graduation, work experience, take any story. Let's take this one at a time. Situation. A situation is the context that you need to give before you begin telling your story. So if it is something that is related to your work experience, then the kind of context you're supposed to give is where you're working, the kind of role that you had, the kind of people that were involved, and what exactly was the situation that you were in. Task. Task is what was expected out of you, what you were supposed to do, or what was your responsibility in that particular situation. Action. Action is what you ended up doing. Did you follow through? What was the decisions that you make? Did you move away from what was expected from you, and why? So you're going to explain what exactly is it that you did in that particular situation. And lastly, result. What was the result that was either expected out of that particular situation and set of actions, or what was the result that you actually saw. So it can be an expected result if, say, you propose a solution but your solution was not taken forward. Then you can talk about what you expected had your solution been taken forward, or if your solution was taken forward, then what was the result that you saw. So every single story that you have will have a situation, a task, an action, and a result associated with it. So try to form as many pointers and as many stories and try to condense them and create a structure to each one of them so that you do not forget them, and so that when you're actually telling a story, you're not all over the place. Instead, you are talking from point to point and you're only saying what is necessary and not really, beating around the bush. Number 3, domain knowledge. Your interview can go in 2 major directions, either your work experience or your domain knowledge. Your work experience is something that's very individual to you. Remember your role, your contribution, and the impact. So these 3 major pointers will help you talk about your work experience. But domain knowledge is a bit tricky. Your domain consists of the subject that you studied in your degree and the subject that you intend to specialize in your MBA. So suppose you studied economics in your degree, but you want to specialize in marketing post your MBA, then economics and marketing become your 2 major domains that you can be grilled upon. Undergraduate degree consists of subjects that you have already studied. So make sure you brush upon them, especially if they're subjects related to business like economics, marketing, finance. So you can really be grilled upon that. That does not mean that, say, suppose you study computer science or civil, then you're not going to be grilled upon topics that are not related to business. Your interviewer can grill you upon whichever topic that you've studied in your undergraduate level. However, if you're making a switch from, say, engineering to MBA and want to specialize in marketing, then the domain that you want to specialize in during your MBA becomes the focal point of your interview. So if you're switching from one particular field into MBA, suppose you're an engineer switching to marketing, how exactly do you prepare for domain-based interviews? You need to answer 2 major questions. Why is there a change from XYZ field to MBA? And have you done anything so far that led you to develop a keen interest in this new field? So if you have done a project or an internship in this new field, for example, marketing, if you're an engineer, then now is a great time to talk about that particular project or an internship. That shows that you have had some sort of an experience in that field, and that experience has led you and made you want to pursue MBA as your master's. Lastly, when you're preparing for domain-specific interviews, use something known as a preparation deck. Now, most B schools will float something called a preparation deck, which will contain content and information across all domains. So we are talking about marketing, finance, HR, operations, IT analytics. You'll have a lot of content in these decks. Also, coaching institutes will also release a deck of their own. When I was preparing for my interviews, I used 2 to 3 decks. I combined them together and I collated a list of questions related to marketing and added them onto my master sheet. For domain-based questions, especially if you are from an undergrad degree like BCom or BBA, where you've studied a lot of topics, you've covered finance, you've covered a bit of marketing, HR, operations, all of these, then your domain-based interview can be based on any particular subject that you've studied in your degree. So one way to counteract that is to mention in your introduction one particular subject or one particular domain that you're extremely interested in. So suppose if you have studied BCom but you're extremely interested in finance, then mention it in your introduction so as to try to, focus the entire interview towards your area of expertise or the area that you want to specialize in, so that you can only expect questions related to finance rather than a whole spectrum of questions. Number 4, group discussions. Now, not every single college has a GD criteria for their selection, but if they do, then remember that group discussions is one of the easiest stages to crack. There are some simple steps that you can follow to stand out in a group discussion and to get all the attention of the interviewer onto you. So make sure that you note down these few steps and you practice them if you have chances of mock group discussions in your coaching institute or so on and so forth. So the tips are as follows. First one, lay down a structure. Remember that you should be the first one to speak in the group discussion, and ideally once the topic is given to you, you have about a minute and a half to 2 minutes to jot down your thoughts. Jot down all your thoughts, lay down a structure, and establish a structure for the entire group so that the entire group can follow that particular structure and have a healthy discussion in a structured manner. A good way to establish a structure is using the PESTLE framework. So no matter what topic that you have, it will always have a political, an economical, a social, a technological, an environmental, and a legal aspect to it. No matter what topic it is going to have a certain mix of these aspects to it. So if you're starting off and establishing a sort of a structure, you can mention to the entire group that we are going to handle the entire group discussion in a structured manner. We are only going to first tackle the political aspects. So all those people who have political points, please come forward. We'll discuss the political and then we'll move to economical, so on and so forth. So if you have any particular points, say to economical, then please hold them to yourself until we reach the economical point. This shows your leadership skills. This shows your structured thinking. This shows that you are able to get all these people together to have a structured, healthy discussion rather than just people throwing points in and just cutting each other out. Number 2, pauses. Pauses are extremely important. While a person is speaking, there's gonna invariably come a point where he or she pauses, and that is your window of opportunity to put in your points and begin speaking and take the spotlight during a group discussion. So look out for pauses, and the moment you see a long pause, that is your opportunity to start putting forward your points. Number 3. Group discussions are not about being the loudest person in the entire group. The interviewers are looking for people who have a structured thought process, who are natural leaders, and who can guide the entire group through a healthy discussion up to a conclusion. So if you're finding group members who are straying away from the topic, it's a great thing to tell them that we are getting away from the topic. It's time to focus our attention back onto the topic. But don't just do that. Okay, make sure that you're not the person who just like, guys, we're getting away from the topic, and you bring them back onto the topic and then you let them continue the discussion. If you're making the point that we are straying away from the topic, that is also your opportunity to put 2 to 3 more points that not only brings them back onto the topic, but also you get a chance to put your points forward and take the discussion to the next stage. So make sure that if you see the group members are straying away from the topic, then bring them back together. It shows your leadership skills and it shows your ability to guide the group to a particular conclusion. Number 4, make sure that you are the one that is concluding the group discussion. Note down all the major points that each and every group member has mentioned. And when the timer has been ticking, when you have been told that this is the last 2 minutes, then it's a great opportunity to say that now I would like to conclude on behalf of the entire group. And then you mention all the points that we started from this particular topic and this particular topic of discussion, and then so and so person mentioned this, and yada yada yada. You mention through what the entire group said, and then you state the concluding remarks, and like this you become the last person that spoke in the group discussion. So make sure that you are introducing the topic and a structure to the group, and you're also concluding the entire discussion. So here are some tips and tricks that you can use to get an edge during your group discussions. Number 1, if you're running out of any points, then go back to the PESTLE framework and see if you've missed out on certain points or not. So every single topic has got a political and economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental aspects to it. And if you haven't covered each and every topic, then now is a great time to just see if you have missed out on any particular topic. Jot down a few points and then use them when you get a chance to speak again. Number 2, keep a track of all the current affairs. So you're going to make some great points, but if you can use real life examples to strengthen those points, then it's going to be really beneficial and play in your favor. So keep a track of all the current affairs and try to use them as often as possible. Number 3, you're going to have multiple points under a particular topic. So suppose if you have 3 major points that you want to say, start off by saying, I have 3 major points to make. Number 1, yada yada yada. Number 2, yada yada yada. Number 3, yada yada yada. When you start off by saying I have 3 points, I have 5 points, I have 2 points to make, so on and so forth, it establishes that you have a certain set of points that you're going to make, and so nobody is going to interfere until you finish those 2, 3, 4 points. And if at all somebody does interfere and start saying their own points, you can politely say, hey, as I said, I'm going to make 3 points, please let me finish, and then you will get a chance to speak. So that's one way to ensure that nobody interferes, and this one tip can really get you far in group discussions. So that's all I had for group discussions. Number 5, current affairs. I'm going to be honest with you. I really suck at current affairs. Out of all the interviews I had, I think there was only one interview that was current affairs dense, and I somehow managed to crack it. So I'm just going to tell you what worked for me, and hopefully it helps you too. So remember that there's only so much that you can do to improve your current affairs or your general knowledge last minute. If you have religiously read the newspapers for VRC preparation, then you're going to find current affairs rather easy. But if you haven't, then here are a few things you can do to better be prepared for current affairs and general knowledge. Number 1, your hometown. The place where you're born, the place where you were raised. Try to gather as much knowledge about it as possible. About the government, about the policies, about the latest development, what your hometown is known for. Gather as much knowledge as possible, because they can ask you any random question about it. If you have studied in a different state or a city from your hometown, then that particular state becomes another point that they can ask you questions about. So if you're studying in a different state altogether, then try to gather as much knowledge about that state, about the language in that state, so on and so forth. The list is endless. The more you add, the less it is, to be very honest. Number 3, current affairs regarding the country. Now, this is a vast ocean. You can either read newspapers, you can watch a lot of videos, you can watch the news, you can do a combination of all of these. What I did is I looked at about 3 to 4 months prior to my interviews, and I tried to gather as much information, primarily through watching a lot of news videos on YouTube. Also, UPSC preparation channels, there are plenty of them, and they will have a detailed run through about the newspapers, like what was it in today's newspaper. Here are certain highlights. Here's what's going on today in the general knowledge section. So I used to see that on a regular basis to be more in touch with the current affairs. What is extremely important for you is to not only know the facts that are going on, but also have an opinion of your own. You cannot cover so much general knowledge last minute, but whatever news that you are consuming, make sure that you have an opinion about it, because what the interviewers are actually looking for is not only whether you are up to date with current affairs, but whether you are able to form an opinion about those topics or not. So while you're consuming a lot of news, also form opinions about it, and you can present them in your interviews and get more brownie points. So that's all I have for current affairs. So that brings us to the end of our GDPI preparation. There's just one simple, strong tip that I'm going to give you. Be as genuine and as honest as possible. Don't try to fake it. Don't try to be someone who you're not, because remember that these interviewers sitting in front of you, they can easily catch if you're faking it or not, and they can easily catch if you're being honest or not. They are interviewing people day in and day out. Okay, so if they even have the slightest hint that the person sitting in front of them is faking it, is lying, or is trying to be someone who he or she isn't, then you've lost all your chances at cracking that particular interview. Be honest, be genuine, and just give your best. Show that you have worked hard for that particular B school. show your commitment, show your hard work, and you will get it. So all the best, and you have my Telegram ID down below. So if you want to reach out to me, if you have certain personal questions, then feel free to reach out to me. As and when I'm free, I will answer all your questions. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll be putting out a lot more videos about my interview preparations, how to write essays, how to write SOPs, and any other topic that I can cover that is going to help you over the next 1.5 to 2 months. So just keep your preparations up, and I hope you get your dream B school. All the best.